This is the Garmin Forerunner 965, and if you're into running, swimming, cycling, or just smashing gym sessions, you need a smartwatch that can keep up. And honestly, this one might be the best on the planet right now. Let's talk about it. Now you might be wondering, why all of a sudden have you bought a Garmin? Because I did an Apple Watch video a few months ago where I returned it and said, I think smartwatches just aren't for me. Well, it turns out that I was editing and working on the London Marathon a few months ago. I remember watching it thinking, this is really inspiring. All the people training and fundraising for charities, I thought it was incredible. And so I entered, and then I checked my spam emails one day and I have this email. So essentially I've signed myself up for 26 miles of hell, and I need a smartwatch like this one to help me get there. I'm gonna keep this video very simple. We're gonna have pros, we're gonna have cons, and then we're gonna have a little verdict and any extra bits that I need to add. So let's kick this video off with the pros, of which there are many with this watch. The first pro is that this is an AMOLED display, and it's up to 1000 nits brightness. It's 454 pixels by 454 pixels. It's 65,000 colors, but it is actually not as bright as the Apple Watch Series 10 or the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which is probably a better comparison. The Apple Watch Ultra 2 goes up to 3000 nits, which is really bright. This one is only 1000 nits, and to be honest, it has been bright and it has been fine, but I think when you would sit an Apple Watch Ultra 2 next to this, you would really see a big difference, especially in broad daylight, broad sunlight. If you're going to be someone who's running in extremely bright sunshine, maybe just consider this when you're buying. Another great pro of this watch is that there are physical buttons. A start-stop button for all of your activities, you have a back button, you have a light button, you have an up button, and you have a down button. So 5 buttons in total, and they all have their own important uses. The thing I like about this is that if you're using this to run marathons or do any sort of exertion where you're sweating a lot, or if you're in the water, a physical button is way better than a touch screen, because your hands might be sweaty, your watch is going to be sweaty, or if you're swimming, you're not going to be able to swipe through whilst you're swimming. And you can use this watch without even touching the screen. You can just use the buttons. You can move up and down through the menus. You can use the start-stop button to start your activities. You can use the back button to go back. It's pretty self-explanatory and it's pretty basic, but sometimes simple is good. But it can take a little bit of getting used to, especially if you're coming from an Apple Watch where you can just tap the back arrow in the top left, but honestly, after a day or two, you'll be fine. In terms of sizing on this Garmin, it is 47 millimeters in size. It's a strong and sturdy build, and it contains a titanium bezel for extra protection. And with all of that, it only weighs 53 grams. In comparison, the Apple Watch Ultra 2 is 61.4. Yes, I know the Apple Watch Ultra 3 is probably going to come out in a few weeks. I probably will pick that up and try and do a comparison and a review on that separately. Much like the Apple Watch, the band on this Garmin is extremely comfortable. It's lightweight, it's gorgeous, it feels like a fancy watch. And what I will say is that I feel like I can wear this in a sporty setting when I'm running or swimming, going to the gym, cycling, tennis, whatever sport it is, I'll probably be wearing it. But I do honestly feel like I could rock this at like a wedding or a function or something more formal, where I would like to wear a watch, but I'd like to keep my Garmin on. I've gone for the black band, the black watch, and I feel like that just works with a lot of different outfits. So it's a great option to have in your wardrobe as well. Now, if you're coming from an Apple Watch, the biggest complaint you will have with an Apple Watch, something that I really thought was so annoying, is the battery life and how poor it is on the Apple Watch. I'm just gonna be completely honest with you. The best thing about this watch is the battery. That is like number one. If you want something that's gonna do all of your activities and you know it's not gonna die after a day, this is definitely number one in terms of battery. It's absolutely outrageous. Apple Watch Series 10, for example, they rate it for 18 hours. So basically you'll be charging at least once a day, probably 1.5 times a day. This battery life can last up to 41 days on the battery saver. But in reality, this works out to 6 or 7 days if you have all the normal workout modes turned on, the blood oxygen, the heart rate, all the sensors. It has been lasting me around 6 to 7 days per charge. Right now it's a Wednesday, I'm on 18%, and I charged it 1 week ago to 100%. And so I still have 18% battery left. And in that time, I've been doing quite a lot. I've been cycling, I've been going to the gym, I've been swimming, I've been running. To still have 18% after a week, that is really, really impressive. And if you have a Garmin, you'll definitely know about this. The morning report is one of my favorite features as well. Now, if you don't know what this is, then essentially when you go to bed, and if you wear the Garmin when you go to bed, you wake up in the morning, you'll have a little morning report. This will show you things like stats from your sleep, your ideal training plan to develop your aerobic capacity, the weather, anything else you want to add in there. This is fully customizable. You can stick whatever you want. I love this because it just gives you a quick glance of what's happened overnight, anything you need to be worried about, what you should be doing today. Bam. And if you want it to be really complicated, you can add things in. If you want it to be stripped back and literally just be sleep. So I really like that it's very customizable. Now, obviously me, like most people who are going to be buying the Forerunner 965, are going to be buying it for running purposes. Now, when you're actually on your run, you can see all of the important statistics that you need to see. You can see your live heart rate, your distance, your pace at a glance during your run. And you can also go into the menus and customize even further what you can see. And there's multiple screens that you can swipe through using either the buttons or just swiping on the screen to see more stats. And when you finished your run, you can see very detailed stats like your cadence, steps per minute, running power, elevation, aerobic, anaerobic effect, stride length, vertical oscillation, and more. You can get a lot more stats than this, but these are just the ones that you can see on a very quick glance. These are very, very detailed. I'm sure there's a lot of running nerds out there that love all these stats. For me, I'm just looking at the very basic, like your distance, average pace, elevation, average and max heart rate, your cadence, and maybe your stride length. Those are the most important things. And on top of that, you also get things like running power, which I think is trying to be a comparison between how much effort you're putting in versus what that would be like if you were cycling or on a bike. So you have all of these options and all of these stats. They will be very useful for professional athletes, people who are training for marathons or races. That's sort of the reason why I bought this, because if I'm training for a marathon, I would like to have as much information as possible. But on the other hand, half of this, most people aren't even going to pay attention to unless you're really into your stats. So take that with a pinch of salt. And if you're wondering how I got these first-person shots, I've been using the Oakley Mattock glasses, and they have been really, really interesting and really fun to use. And I'll be doing a full separate video on those in the coming weeks. So make sure you subscribe and stay tuned for that. Another pro of this Garmin Forerunner 965 is swimming on this is really good. I love swimming with this. I've found this to be a lot more reliable in terms of actually calculating my distance than my Apple Watch Series 10 when I tried that out a few months ago. Again, with your swimming, when you're on your actual swim, you can only use the buttons to switch through. You cannot touch the touchscreen for obvious reasons. The water could trigger a false swipe and end up stopping it or doing some random stuff that you don't want. But when you're swimming, you can see your heart rate, your distance, your pace, your interval time, your splits, and the Garmin will actually cycle through the screens on your wrist whilst you're swimming. So you can see different stats at different times. If you glance down every so often, it will just rotate these screens to show you more information. Of course, there's going to be people out there that are going to be looking at these stats whilst they're swimming. But for me, I just want to focus on swimming. And you can also do something called a critical swim test. I haven't seen this on the Apple Watch. I could be wrong. There might be a setting there. But essentially, this is a 10-minute warm-up swim, then a 400-yard fast swim, another 10-minute swim, and then a 200-yard fast swim. I think that's trying to calculate how you can swim under extreme pressure and how far you could go, what's your maximum threshold in terms of your swimming. And something else that has really taken people over is the sleep tracking stats on this watch. People love tracking their sleep. Something it will do is give you a sleep score immediately when you wake up in your morning report. And there's also a sleep coach that will tell you if you're in a sleep deficit and you need more sleep one night because you didn't sleep well the night before. It's really, really interesting and really cool that there's those stats on there. However, I have definitely had really good sleep and feel great and very refreshed. I look at my wrist and it's told me that I have had poor sleep, but I know in myself that I feel good. So there's obviously a line you've got to draw. If you're obviously relying on looking at this watch to tell you how good you feel, then maybe this can get quite addictive very quickly. And you probably should pay attention to how your body feels rather than what your watch is telling you. And it also takes away pretty much no battery. I think I lose about 1 to 2% of battery per night in comparison to the Apple Watch. I think I was losing way more than that. And obviously you'd have to charge it again or charge it before you went to bed. Something to consider if you're interested in your sleep tracking insights. This watch is also very customizable. There are a huge variety of watch faces that are customizable. It gives the feeling of a real watch because I feel like this is more of a watch and less of a phone. The Apple Watch, I felt like it was just an extension of my iPhone. And I've worked out the last few weeks, that's the thing that I don't like about the Apple Watch, is that I feel like I'm so connected. Even if I turn all the notifications off, I still feel like it's a phone on my wrist. I'm not a big lover of that. I want this to be purely for my running, for my swimming, for my gyms, if I go cycling, play tennis, whatever. I want this to be sports-based. I want this to be about my health. I don't want this to be about receiving pointless notifications or getting buzzed. Don't care about that. I just want to have the stats about my activities. And this is where I found that the Garmin really excels. So speaking of customizable watch faces, here are a couple of really terrible watch faces that I made. I mean, I can't believe I made these. I was making these at the time thinking, oh, it must be a way of making this look better. Turns out that I'm just not very good at making watch faces. These two are absolutely hideous. You'll be glad to know that I haven't used either of these watch faces. I've switched it back to the ones that you'll see in the clips of the watch in this video. I know people like the digital aspect of it, but I like looking at an actual watch and seeing the actual time and not having to look at a digital time. Maybe that's me being old school, but I just like seeing the hands on a watch. It feels more like a watch rather than another device. But for those of you out there who are much better than me at making watch faces, you can use the Garmin IQ app and you can make your own watch faces and download more that people have made. There's also a feature on the Garmin watch called Live Track, which is essentially tracking during races, and this is great for safety as well. If you want to let a family member or a friend know where you are, it's a little bit clunky in terms of you have to set it up and they'll get a text and they have to click a link and sign up to actually receive these alerts. Not as seamless as Apple, but it is there if you want to do it. And on this watch, there are an abundance of amazing health features. For example, you can see your VO2 max measurements and also your lactate level. So VO2 max is normally calculated in a controlled environment where you've got to wear a mask that limits the amount of oxygen you have. You either run or you're on the bike or both, and they'll calculate your VO2 max from that. With a Garmin, you don't need any of that. You can just whack on the watch and that's it. You have all the stats that you need. And your lactate level will be a time measurement. So I think mine is 8 minutes something, 8 minute 10 or something like that. And that's the level that your watch is saying that's as fast as you could run before your lactate builds up, and you'll start to increase the risk of injury, increase the risk of stress on your muscles. So it's good to know where sort of your max is. There's also something called training readiness on this watch, which combines your sleep, your training load, your HRV to tell you how ready you are to actually go and do activities like going to the gym, running, etc. This is quite interesting because it combines all of these multiple statistics, and you can basically break it down to you're either not ready, you're sort of ready, or you're definitely ready. Other advanced features include the Garmin virtual running partner that you can set up and have someone running alongside with you to keep your pace in check, give you little notifications on your watch to say you're either lagging behind or you're going too fast. There's also a race time predictor for 5K, 10K, half marathon and a full marathon. Your training status, which can be brutal sometimes. If you miss a couple of days, training status will say, hey, you've done nothing, you're being lazy, and you're actually being very ineffective in terms of your fitness. This will tell you, it will be brutally honest with you, which I love, which is great because that'll keep you in check. And finally, there's also on-device maps, which I've used a little bit, not too much because I know where I'm running most of the time, it's only short distances. I think this would really excel if you're going somewhere on a trip and you want to go for a run and you don't know where exactly you're going, you don't want to bring your phone with you, you can just use the Garmin. Then you can look on your wrist and it will map out a little route for you. If you say I want to run 5K, 10K, it will find the best route for you. And the on-device maps are really easy to read. They use multi-band GPS. So essentially you'll get more accurate readings on your runs, your swims, your cycles, and all of your activities. Right, so those are all of my pros of this watch. I have some cons and some extras, but let's talk about some of the cons of this watch because it is not perfect. First con is that for me, and this will sound really odd after I've been bigging it up, the interface is slightly clunky. It's not as clean as Apple. And I know Apple is probably one of the best in terms of like OS and software and making everything feel very cohesive and transparent. But I just didn't get that with Garmin. I think it's because I have an iPhone and you have to use the Garmin Connect app, the Garmin IQ app. The Garmin Connect app will have all of your stats on it in terms of your activities and your heart rate, sleep, everything like that. The Garmin IQ app is how you customize the watch. And I feel like on Apple, it's just sort of baked into the device. You don't have to worry about too many external apps. Of course, you're gonna need, Strava or something. But I just feel like having multiple apps and having to set things up is a little bit clunky. It's not as smooth as it could be. But the benefit of that is that once you've done it once, you don't have to really worry about it. You never have to check the Garmin Connect app if you don't want to. I'd advise that you do, but you don't actually have to. Another con is that there's actually no ECG app on this watch. There is actually a newer version of this watch called the Garmin Forerunner 970. That came out like 2 months ago. It's a little bit more expensive than the Garmin Forerunner 965, but the 970 has slightly worse battery life because it has a brighter screen, and it actually has this big sort of yellow start-stop button, which I really didn't like, especially because I'm an Ipswich Town fan. We don't want any yellow in this house. Felt a bit weird, and I didn't like to pay more money for something that doesn't really have that many more features that I would personally use. So I went with a 965. But the 970 does have an ECG app like the Apple Watches do. Garmin Forerunner 965 does not have that. There's also no 4G or LTE connectivity. There's no microphone for calls. There's no wireless charging. But if you're not worried about that at all, which I'm not, doesn't really matter. Another con for some people will be the notifications for messaging and news is not as easily integrated as Apple. That will come as a shock to absolutely nobody because Apple is built for Apple products. You'll get a notification if you have it turned on for messages. There's no way of replying to that unless you install another app, the Garmin messaging app, And to be honest, I can't be bothered with setting up so many different apps. Again, it might be one that you can set up once and never have to worry about it again, but the fact you have to have like 4 different apps on your phone, I just think by the time you've downloaded all these apps, you may as well just pull out your phone, send a text, because the keyboard on this thing, you don't want to be using it. It's like going back to 2004. Another con is that there is no Apple Music support. You'll need an iPhone to listen to your Apple Music. Now, I am someone that uses Apple Music. I don't pay for Spotify. I will never pay for Spotify. I'll put a link to a video why I won't do that. I use Apple Music, but unfortunately, because Apple have a complete monopoly over where Apple Music goes, you can't have Apple Music as one of your music apps on the Garmin. You can only have Spotify, Amazon, Deezer. You can even put MP3s on this, I believe. I would say this is actually quite expensive. This is a 2-year-old device and it costs £499 right now on the Garmin website. Now, I got £100 off through my Runner subscription. My Runner subscription for the year cost me £100 and I ended up getting £100 off the watch. But still, it cost £399 for me. It pretty much costs similar to what an Apple Watch Series 10 costs. Of course, an Apple Watch Ultra is a bit more expensive. This is probably not the flagship anymore. It's been out for a couple of years, but I still thought the price was quite high for what it is. But if you're using it every day and you're getting use out of it, then it's going to be worth the money. And also, the pulse oxygen will drain your battery. I've turned it so it's just on during my sleep. But if you have it on demand or all the time, you'll notice that your battery is going to drop a little bit faster than usual. And another con that is kind of funny, I hit 10,000 steps whilst I was driving home the other day. I don't know if there was a lag on this part or anyone else has ever experienced this, but I was literally sat in my car driving home from the gym. I looked at my watch, it buzzed and it said, congratulations, like 10,000 steps, and does the funky animation. Whether that's a con or not, I don't know. So those are the cons, but here are some extra cool things that I think are worth mentioning when it comes to this watch. First up, you can double tap the light button for a quick flashlight. And you can also press and hold the back button, which will also launch the flashlight. You can turn off the touchscreen to avoid accidental taps and just use the buttons if you want to. And there's also incident detection, which alerts emergency contacts, which you need to set up when you first get the watch. These are all good things, particularly the incident detection. If you have a fall or you have an injury, Garmin will automatically let your emergency contacts know. And I mentioned this earlier, but the sleep score can sometimes be a bit variable. Sometimes I felt better with a lower sleep score, and sometimes I got more sleep, but a lower score because I didn't have as much deep sleep or REM sleep than the previous night. So don't get too caught up on your sleep tracking. If you feel good and you feel well rested, listen to your body. You know, you've got to try and take it with a pinch of salt, balance it out a little bit. So my summary of this watch, I would say overall, this is the best smartwatch to buy in 2025, even though this is 2 years old and it's slightly older tech and you can get a slightly newer version with a different button, but it's going to cost you more money and it does basically the same thing that this does. I think this is a really great bang for your buck. The features, the accuracy, the display, the battery life, it's easy to wear for several days. It's probably not the best watch in every single department, but it's consistently in the top 2 or 3 in every single area. And once you average that out across everything, there's going to be watches that are great in one thing and terrible in the other. Like Apple Watch is great for sort of connectivity. Battery life is awful, probably the worst battery that you'll get. So they average out quite low down. With this, everything is pretty much really, really good. It's not the best watch in every individual aspect, but it does everything together to a really high standard, which makes it overall the best bang for your buck. But there is a caveat. If you do have an iPhone and you need the Apple Music connectivity, you want to have iMessage, you want to have the access to do phone calls, then this probably won't be the best option. An Apple Watch is probably still your favorite option. But if you just want some smartwatch to keep you purely in check with your fitness, your running, your swimming, any activity, this is going to be one of the best options for you. I don't regret buying this whatsoever. It keeps me honest, it keeps me inspired and motivated to keep doing more. I think this is going to be a great watch and I'll definitely be wearing this when I run the London Marathon. I'm interested to see what Apple will do with the Apple Watch Ultra 3. You'll have to keep your eyes out and subscribe for that video. But as of right now, this is going to be my go-to watch for the foreseeable future, and I would strongly recommend it if you're looking to do anything similar. That's my review. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.